There's a little garage on a small town street. I like to meet my friends there every week, and I know we'll talk about some facts and things, history and science and some crazy shit. Talking it out with Alan, Ben, and Nick, and I know that it's gonna be a weird-ass show. Ooh, insanity abounds. Ooh, the world is spinning round. Now we're gonna break it down. Thanks for tuning in. This is Informed and Confused. I'm Ben.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Nick. So, today we're going to be the most tinfoil hatty we're probably ever gonna be.
At least more so than we normally are.
But I forgot my tinfoil hat.
I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you.
How can we get tinfoil hatty without my tinfoil hat? The aliens will fry my brains.
Oh no, this isn't aliens, it's the CIA.
Well, I thought the aliens were working for the CIA.
No,
Not in this
they work
one.
for the Army.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Come on, man. You have to
I
remember
gotta
the
get it
division of
together.
state powers here. Come on.
I gotta get it together. That's just way ridiculous the way I said it.
Yeah, no. Today we're talking about MK Ultra. And I'm just going to ask, do either one of you know much about this at all off this head?
I know a fair amount because of my research into LSD and such, but my investigations took me in a slightly different direction.
You know what's really funny? In all likelihood, every last bit of LSD you've ever had was most likely made by the CIA in 1953.
Or one of the chemists that came out of the program.
Believe it or not, highly unlikely that the volume they made could actually explain all of the sales in North America up until this point. Yeah, CIA, man. Giving drugs to hippies.
And other people.
Yeah, mostly against their will.
And I'm pretty sure some portion of our audience just left.
I
would
mean,
speculate on the number or the
well, I'd like to.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out, in 1977, under Senate hearings and investigations, this was confirmed to be true and real.
Oh yeah.
This is part of the public record that no, we definitely did this. So I guess we'll go all the way to the beginning here, back to 1951. And depending on where you want to start this starts with either Operation Bluebird or Operation Artichoke. Operation Bluebird.
Those are great names.
Operation Bluebird, literally all we have is like 25 pages worth of records of financial shit that they needed for whatever program they were running at the time. But it was released in a FOIA request about MK Ultra, so it has something to do with MK Ultra in 51.
At least peripherally.
Yeah, in 51, which is 2 years before the formal start of MK Ultra.
No, it's like, oh, guys, actually, we need that shit back. That's wrong government conspiracy. Wrong government conspiracy. We need to take those documents back.
Yeah, but in any case, Operation Artichoke, which is considered the direct successor to MK Ultra, started in 51. And that started after testing on prisoners of war overseas. I've got a thing later in my notes about that in here. More than 160 programs were conducted by the CIA to test the effectiveness of chemically enhanced interrogation or the possibility of making a brainwashed assassin sleeper agent. I can't talk, apparently. This is wonderful.
Okay, so it's the American version of what the Russians did with sleeper agents and shit like that. Or tried to do.
Well, we thought they were doing it, but there's not really any evidence that they really were until we were doing it. Like, it's... Yeah, that gets murky.
Well, once one group decides to do it, everybody else has to make the attempt.
Right. But before we get to those 160 programs, Artichoke and Bluebird utilized such notable methods to test the same hypotheses, such substances as cocaine, heroin, peyote, dengue fever. There's another one on this list, but I'm going to ask around on dengue fever.
We're just going to make
Dengue
people
fever.
sick, and it'll turn them into our agents.
Oh, I have a quote from the director of Artichoke at the time. Not all viruses have to be lethal. The idea was something that could just incapacitate at will.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But most notably, what these two precursor projects utilized was LSD. Oh yeah, and THC, because everyone thought weed was a fucking boogeyman back then and put it in the same league as dengue fever, apparently.
The history of marijuana and what people believed and what propaganda surrounded it is a very complex and long story.
Right. But by 53, some public leaks have gotten out about Operation Artichoke, largely because they started just kind of dosing people without telling them. It's a reoccurring theme in this story, by the way. There's no consent really anywhere in this.
Very, very little.
Yeah. And once it was renamed to MK Ultra, they actually did a really good job of covering it up after that. We literally only have documentation on 6 specific operations. I've seen numbers saying that there were 162 separate operations. I've seen some saying as high as 168. It's more than 160 separate operations that made up this entire thing. And not all of them were even labeled under MK Ultra. Some of them had sub-designations like MK Delta. Like, there was just a whole ludicrous nest with this. MK Ultra was started under Alan Dulles. I think that's how his last name is pronounced. Anyone want to take a
How do you
crack
spell it?
Dulles? Dulles?
Probably
Dulles?
something like that.
Is it Dulles?
Dulles,
Dulles, maybe?
Dulles? What's his job title?
Director of the CIA. He's the guy who approved
Dulles.
this.
I'm pretty sure that's his name, Dulles.
Okay, Dulles. We'll go with that.
I think.
You tend to know civil servants better than we do, so I'm trusting you on that.
That name sounds familiar from that era and that role.
Yeah,
So.
I actually mostly used print sources on this one because like all this shit was like public by 77, and if you ignore like all the conspiracy shit that comes after, you really can only look at shit from 77. Yeah, no, I actually looked through like government receipt documents.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I wanted to get a better idea of, like, what we actually got to try and understand this, and I do understand more now why, like, conspiracies grew out of this. It's because we have so little. There's very little to go on here, but what we do have as, like, rock solid is damning.
Well, like you said, they did a very good job of covering this up, and most of what we have is, like, first-hand accounts of the people who got tricked into being part of it. And all of that is a little uncertain
Dubious?
dubious because they were on drugs at the time.
Oh, but there were plenty that we had documentation on. Mr. Alan Dulles?
Dulles.
I'm sorry.
Think Dallas, but with a U instead of an A.
Dallas, but
Okay.
duller.
Yeah. Mr. Alan Dulles appointed. Oh, god damn, what did the autocorrect do to me? No!
Damn you, technology!
It's a conspiracy.
MK Ultra's in your pad.
No! 2 of my names are garbage! No! Pause the fucking recording. God damn it.
Apparently, we just can't talk about LSD.
We may have to keep the line about not being able to talk about LSD and the frustration of having to start over from Mr. Alan Dulles, the CIA director who ordered the creation of MK Ultra. On April 13th, 1953, he appointed Sidney Gottlieb to be the project head for Ultra. At this point, I need to pull up a Word document for us to go over because there is this ludicrously long list of goals established for MK Ultra, and this was part of the release documents.
Well, because MK Ultra had so much to do with LSD, you want me to go over a little bit about what and how?
You know what? Now is as good a time as any to talk about LSD.
Okay, so first of all, do either of you know what LSD stands for? Something drugs.
I knew this at one point. I cannot for the life of me remember.
Okay, LSD stands for lysergic acid diethylamide, which is a whole lot of words for science. It was first.
I remember the lysergic acid.
It was first synthesized in 1938 by a Swiss chemist named Albert Hofmann in the Sandoz laboratories in Basel, Switzerland. At that point, it was originally synthesized because he was attempting to make an analeptic, something to help with respiratory and circulatory stuff.
Didn't he have disappointing initial results based on animal testing?
He did, and he set it aside for 5 years, put it up on a shelf, brought it down in April of 1943 when he decided to take a second look at it. At this point, he accidentally dosed himself with it. This is where we get his first findings on LSD. He describes it, I have a quote from him. He describes being affected by a remarkable restlessness, combined with a slight dizziness. At home, I lay down and sank into a not unpleasant, intoxicated-like condition, characterized by an extremely stimulated imagination. In a dreamlike state, with eyes closed, I found the daylight to be unpleasantly glaring. I perceived an uninterrupted stream of fantastic pictures, extraordinary shapes with intense, kaleidoscopic play of colors. After about 2 hours, this condition faded away. Now, after this, about 3 days later, on April 19th, he decided to purposefully dose himself with this LSD.
Now, I do remember seeing this in my own research. He started with what he thought would be well below a psychoactive amount.
Yup, he started by dosing himself with 250 micrograms.
That sounds like very little.
Thinking that would be
Didn't
the
he trip
threshold
balls
dose.
for like 3 days?
An actual threshold dose is 20 micrograms.
Wow.
Yeah.
God.
So, a little less than an hour after he dosed himself, he claimed to experience sudden and intense changes in perception and asked his assistant to help him home. Because at the time in Switzerland, you rode your bicycle to work and you and your colleagues would, as a group, ride home. On the way home, Hoffman's condition rapidly deteriorated. He started getting feelings of anxiety, beliefs that his next-door neighbor was a malevolent witch, that he was going insane, and that the LSD had poisoned him.
Can you prove none of that's true?
He called a doctor. When the doctor arrived, he detected no physical abnormalities except for dilated pupils. Hoffman, being reassured, then had a good trip.
The doctor says you're okay.
Later on, he wrote of his experience and said, "Little by little, I could begin enjoying the unprecedented colors and plays of shapes that persisted behind my closed eyes. Kaleidoscopic, fantastic images surged in on me, alternating, variegated, opening and then closing themselves in circles and spirals, exploding in colored fountains, rearranging and hybridizing themselves in constant flux." To this day, psychedelic communities refer to that original bicycle ride and celebrate every April 19th with something called Bicycle Day.
I like that the creation of MK Ultra and the first acid anniversary are 6 days apart.
I did not know that, but that is cool.
I mean, not by year, but by month.
Since then, it first saw widespread psychiatric use in the early 50s under the name Delysid, D-E-L-Y-S-I-D. And this was actually used by psychologists and psychiatrists throughout both Europe and the U.S.
Fun fact here, a lot of those psychologists that were dosing with LSD got it directly from the CIA, because guess who was funding all of those acid-based studies?
Yep. You have such names as Dr. Henry Osmond, who did experiments by dosing Alcoholic Anonymous candidates, people, with acid to see if that did things. You get people like Dr. Timothy Leary, who, as a Harvard professor, started his work doing psilocybin experiments on state prisoners.
There are a couple Harvard psychologists that
Yeah.
used LSD dosing and shit. That were
Well,
on the
he
CIA's
started with
payroll.
He started with magic mushrooms, but then went into
Psilocybin is one of the substances tested by MK Ultra.
Yep. That's why I mentioned
They gave
it.
people like everything. Like they gave people heroin to get them addicted just to see what withdrawal will make you do.
I've got a number of other names that are tangentially related, but not related to MK Ultra, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna skip those. So let's get back to MK Ultra, and I believe Nick, you had
So,
a list of their posted goals.
17 stated goals at the inception of the project, and I'm sure this list got longer, but again, we don't have a whole hell of a lot in the way of documentation, but this is what we've got from their documents. Number 1. Substances will promote illogical thinking and impulsiveness to the point where the recipient would be discredited in public. Number 2. Substances which increase the efficiency of mentation and perception. I like that word, mentation. Government documents used to be more colorful. Number 3.
People used to make up more words in them.
Right? L. Ron Hubbard wrote this. Number 3.
God.
Materials which will prevent or counteract the intoxicating effect of alcohol. I'm not sure I agree with that one.
That goes back to what I was talking about, the experiments and giving them to people at Alcoholic Anonymous.
Well, Ben, I think you'll like goal number 4, materials which will promote the intoxicating effect of alcohol.
Yup.
Yeah, not all of these are evil. Like, the broken clocks and all. Number 5, materials which will produce the signs and symptoms of recognized diseases in a reversible way so they may be used for malingering, etc.
Malingering and etc.
Oh, yeah. Number 6, materials which will render the induction of hypnosis easier or
Yep.
otherwise enhance its usefulness.
Yep.
Number 7, substances which will enhance the ability of individuals to withstand privation, torture, and coercion during interrogation and so-called brainwashing. And brainwashing is in quotation marks. Number 8.
Pretty sure they failed at that one.
It's Sirhan, not the point. Materials and physical methods which will produce amnesia for events preceding and during their use. Forget me juice.
Okay. Yeah.
Number 9. Physical methods of producing shock and confusion over extended periods of time and capable of surreptitious use. Is Donald Trump just an escaped MK Ultra program? I'm not prepared to rule it out.
Well, he was in the right
What number did I
places
leave off
at
with?
the appropriate
I did it bad.
Yeah.
Okay, number 10. Substances which produce physical disablement, such as paralysis of the legs, acute anemia, etc. How do we fuck someone up without killing them? Number 11. Substances which will produce pure euphoria with no subsequent letdown. Number 11 doesn't sound
Yeah.
so bad.
Yeah.
And that one, I think that LSD does succeed at that one.
You can still have a bad trip, man.
Yeah.
Lady
Yeah.
Gravy told us all to
Occasionally.
You
avoid the
very
brown
much
acid.
can.
That either really, really succeeds or really, really,
fails. Yes.
Okay, number 12. Substances which alter personality structure in such a way the tendency of the recipient to become dependent upon another person is enhanced. I'm telling you, Donald Trump is an escaped program. Number 13. A material which will cause mental confusion of such type that the individual under its influence will find it difficult to maintain a fabrication under questioning. I think that means truth serum. I don't know why they didn't just say truth serum.
Because they have to use more words because it's a government document.
I disagree. They pay by the letter.
Exactly. So the more words
No,
you
that's
use,
a bill
the more
for
you
them.
pay.
That's a bill for them.
Oh.
Number 14, substances which will lower the ambition and general working efficiency of men when administered in undetectable amounts. Number 15, I think they tried that with Castro. I think that's a direct reference to like 7 different Castro plots that I'm aware of.
They did attempt to use LSD on Castro.
Oh, they attempted so many things with Castro. They attempted radioactive underwear with Castro. Number 15, substances which promote weakness or disorientation of the eyesight or hearing faculties, preferably without permanent effects. But they were okay if it was permanent. If Mace didn't stop.
Yep.
Number 16, a knockout pill, which can be used surreptitiously administered in drinks, food, cigarettes, as an aerosol, etc., which will be safe to use, provide a maximum of amnesia, and be suitable for use by agent types on an ad hoc basis.
You know, whenever they want to.
You're starting to understand how consent was just never considered anywhere in this.
Oh, no, the entire plan here was to be able to develop something that they could just give to people without consent.
Well, they wanted to use it as a weapon.
Right,
you don't
right.
You don't tell someone you're using a weapon against, I'm about to attack you now.
Yeah, if you're trying to weaponize something, you don't tell the person you're doing it on.
Yeah, I mean, we're not in an anime, so...
And number
or are we?
And number 17, the last one I've got here, and arguably amongst the more insidious, a material which can be surreptitiously administered by the above routes, and which in very small amounts will make it impossible for a person to perform physical activity. They wanted paralyzing spray.
Yep.
They wanted cripple you in a bottle.
Well, it's okay so long as the person doesn't die, right? Paralyze them, cripple them. It's all good so long as they don't die, right?
They only prefer that it's not permanent. They're okay if it's permanent.
Yeah, so those are a little vague in places, but...
Well, again, this is like what they set out to do when they
stated
started.
goals.
And again, we don't know if this is a complete list. The simple fact of the matter is that I believe it's the next director of the CIA. I don't believe there's anyone between these guys. Richard Helms orders all of the MK Ultra documents destroyed when Watergate happens. A lot of people think there's a direct connection between the MK Ultra program and Watergate somehow. I don't see it.
Just the timing lines up.
There's a lot of conspiracy theories about, like, the guys who broke in were brainwashed and shit, and, like, it was...
If anything, it was simply a matter of people were starting to poke around, and they simply wanted to make sure nobody branched off and accidentally dug their way
Burn it
into
all
that.
down.
Yeah, well, I mean...
While they were looking for other shit. But.
Well, I mean, when your paperwork on this includes testing on prisoners, mental patients, random street people, secret detention camp detainees, well, that doesn't look good, and they're about to be digging through every waste paper basket in the CIA, making sure that they weren't involved in Watergate. So,
Yep.
Mr. Helms is understandably scared. And for those wondering about those secret detention camps, just a little nugget for you, because I always embrace the worst parts of history. 1950s Japan, Germany, and Philippines used to hold dissidents and others the CIA deemed expendable. These places were run by the fucking CIA.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, the only reason the 20,000 documents we have individual pieces of paper on MK Ultra that survived this purge, the only reason we have them is because they were misfiled.
They weren't in the place that they were supposed to be, so they got missed in the purge.
Nope. They didn't get put with any of the rest of the records about the activities and the goings-on. Do you want to know where it ended up?
Where?
Financial receiving.
I was going to say probably somewhere in the tax documents.
Yeah, no, in the final ledger of all the bills, like, they just had an extra box, apparently. The records were ultimately turned over in '77 on a successful FOIA request, and were fully investigated by Senate-led commissions. The only reason we have access to this now is because of a group called the Rockefeller Commission,
Yep.
which was a presidential commission charged with investigating claims of illegal domestic activity of the FBI and CIA. That was their only job, and that's some good checks and balances shit.
Oh, and they found a lot of stuff.
Well,
Even aside from MK Ultra.
well, there was a lot of stuff they didn't care about that they knew about going in, but like disclosing MK Ultra was kind of like nobody thought any of this survived, and they couldn't say it wasn't there.
Yeah.
At this point, we kind of move off of the beaten path to what I'm simply calling confirmable rumors. We have enough documentation to say this happened. Can I point to a specific individual at a specific time, at a specific location? No, we're always going to be missing one of those key details, and I'm very sorry to tell you that. They tried to cover this up, and they did an exceptionally good job because it was all internal.
Yep.
Random dosing of project members, unrestricted access to test materials, hiding activity through research grant programs using universities and hospitals in order to find test subjects, and the way they would do that is they would set up a series of shell corporations to diffuse the path of the money before it actually got to the people who were actively putting drugs in people. But the CIA funded a bunch of stuff. Coincidentally, because of MK Ultra, the CIA also funded a bunch of psychological studies that revolutionized the way
Yep.
we dealt with mental disease. So, I mean, I guess that's your silver lining to this cloud. The CIA accidentally did something nice while they were researching blind spray.
Yeah.
At which point, just bleach in a Windex bottle, right? Am I wrong? I just thought this out. How good are the CIA, man? They suck at this.
No, drink the bleach. Don't drink the bleach, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you may be asking, how can we confirm these rumors? How's about I tell you a little story that contains aspects of all fucking three of those points? Who's game for story time?
I like story time.
By all means.
Okay. Dr. Frank Olson, a biological warfare expert and bacteriologist working with Sidney Gottlieb. He also worked with the Department of Defense frequently. He was a biological weapons expert.
Yeah.
Kind of an important gig in the modern world. He had been working with Sidney Gottlieb on some portion of MK Ultra. As to what specifically he was working with, I couldn't tell you. Probably not LSD, given his background. Olson was dosed at a non-work function. It was a retreat to a cabin in Maryland. I forget the name of the lake, but it's the largest inland lake in the state. Google that. You'll figure out where the fuck this place was. It's in Maryland. Don't look at me with those accusing eyes.
Looking at you with accusing eyes.
He's accusing me. All right, Groucho Marx. But he was dosed at a non-work function, most likely with LSD. We're never going to know specifically what he was given. Without any knowledge of what he was given. Somebody just slipped it into his drink. Most likely Gottlieb.
That was actually pretty common.
Oh, yeah,
for
no,
stuff through MK. Like, you'd
Well,
go
I'm
to a
trying to-
dinner party
I'm
and...
trying to avoid rumors.
Yeah.
trying to avoid rumors.
Okay,
We
okay.
know this. We know this happened. Once Dr. Olson is given this, he fairly quickly freaks the fuck out
Yep,
because his world is melting and he doesn't know why.
yep.
Like you have to either believe you're like stroking out, you're dying, something's wrong.
Oh, yeah, if your world starts wigging out, but you don't know that you've taken anything, it's just a massive...
And everyone's acting like nothing's wrong because
Yeah.
the rest of the room was probably in on the fucking joke.
Or were unaware.
They got real comfortable doing this. There were stories of them just like putting it in the coffee at the office to
Yep.
see what would happen. Like,
Oh, there's stories
all
of
kinds
the
of crazy
agents
shit.
pranking each other at the agency.
oh yeah. Well,
just
well,
for
again,
shits and giggles.
in '53, they made 50 gallons of the stuff, and because of how little it takes to dose, 50
Yeah.
gallons will last a very long time. And even the most, for lack of a better term, liberal estimates I saw We've only used about 39 of those gallons.
Does the shit not have a shelf life?
It's stable.
So
That's as
long
much
as
as I
it's
know.
kept, so long as it's kept in a cool, dark location, it will last indefinitely, as far as we know.
But yeah, no, the CIA very well could have supplied all of the LSD in North America for what we know. And if you've done LSD more than once, chances are you have had government issue LSD.
Yep, probably.
All of the LSD that the hippies were doing, government issued LSD.
Oh yeah.
Oh, hang on. I'm still in the middle of a story.
Okay,
I
do it.
appreciate your enthusiasm, but we're in the middle of the story. So as Olson's
and I turned
freaking
it off anyways. So.
as Olson's freaking out and everyone's just kind of laughing about it, he breaks out of the cabin and just bolts into the fucking woods. They very quickly organize a group and try to chase him down. He gets dosed somewhere around dinner time, which we can assume is like 6, 7 o'clock. They don't find him until about 2 in the morning. And he's less than a mile from the cabin, barefoot, hiding in a ditch next to the road, just absolutely filthy, and catatonic's the wrong word, but like they just could not communicate with him. He was
Just
out.
freaking the fuck out.
Just out. Eventually, he does come down, and, you know, they take him to a doctor, and they say he's okay, but the problem then is this medical doctor, this military contractor, this highly respected specialist, this well-educated, stable man, jumps out of his high-rise 9 days after being dosed with LSD and breaking his fucking reality.
Yep. Well, after something like that, how can you ever trust reality to make sense again?
I don't have a whole lot to say about that story past what we know for a fact. And those are the only facts we know. Was he having an acid flash and that's why he did it? We will literally never know. But we do know 9 days prior, this previously stable individual who is trusted with top-level government information was fine.
And then he was given a high dose, freaked the fuck out, and 9 days later he kills himself.
I'm not fully prepared to rule out the possibility if he was doing something else disgusting for the U.S. government and a conscience finally grew, but I
Could
still
be.
don't think that would be the primary motivator. I think
Yeah, we just don't know.
Yeah,
there's not enough
there's enough-
information.
Well, again, I referred to these as confirmable rumors. We will never have more than individual rumors, but we can put them together with the documentation we have to be able to make a positive statement of, in all likelihood. This is the 95% probability scenario.
Well, and then there's stories that escape the program, like Ken Casey writing "One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest" and things like that.
Well,
where,
he volunteered. He was a
yes.
college student, volunteered out of the local army hospital, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
I believe it was. It came up in my research. It was out in California, I believe. I know the guy you're talking about.
I don't remember. I didn't write that down as part of my notes, but
Oh, talk about him. I know enough that he's important.
well, I'm turning my notes back on.
Oh, well, by all means. He has notes.
Yeah,
How wonderful is
Ben
this?
did research.
He has notes.
Admittedly, not a lot, but Ben did research today.
Are you proud of him, Alan?
Frankly, that's more unbelievable than the government conspiracy.
That's
How do you
not
know
an
it's
answer.
not a government
That's not an
conspiracy?
answer. Are you proud of him?
Yes, I'm proud of our Ben.
I made people proud.
Hey, you're breaking even with me.
You know, Ken Casey is most well known for the group of activists known as the Merry Pranksters, whose entire deal was to go around throwing parties they called acid tests and giving LSD out to people.
That's a hell of a test.
Ken Casey is also the
What
reason.
was their pass-fail rate? How many bad
I
trips
have no
did they
idea.
hand out?
I have no idea. But Ken Casey is also the reason why we have the Grateful Dead, because at the time
Yeah, he hung out
they
with
were
them all the time.
at the time they were called the Warlocks, and they were his favorite band.
Yeah, Jerry Garcia and not the drummer, the singer.
I couldn't tell you.
I know it was Jerry Garcia and one of the other guys. Love Jerry Garcia. I wish I had him in a bag.
Here was the one. You were talking about how a lot of the acid came directly from MK Ultra. This isn't confirmed, but there was a man named Alfred Hubbard, no relation. He was known as Captain Trips.
Are you sure?
And
Were they spirit brothers? He is a captain.
I have no idea. But
Did they ever share a thetan?
He was basically the Johnny Appleseed of LSD. He was known to
That's
carry
a
around...
great nickname. That is a wonderful nickname.
He was known to carry around a briefcase full of LSD.
Okay, fun fact about a briefcase full of LSD. So, they've calculated out how much it would take to give every single person in the United States, man, woman, and child, a single hit of acid, and you can fit it in a standard Samsonite briefcase.
Yep.
So a briefcase full of acid, you say?
Yep. And he left and just traveled around giving out LSD. That's actually a pretty common
That's not the worst
theme
use
with
of a life.
LSD.
That's not the worst use of a life. I don't think it's the best use either, but it's definitely not the worst use. Yeah, I've really only got 1 point left, but boy, is it a doozy. Have either of you ever heard of a man by the name of Theodore Kaczynski? Went by
Sounds
Ted.
familiar?
He was the Unabomber.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. And I know that there was a lot of talk about wasn't he a member
Well,
of...
here's what I have to say about this. Everything I'm listing here is confirmable. It's factual. We know this happened. The only question is, did the guy running it receive money from the CIA for this experiment? We know this guy got paid by the CIA repeatedly. The CIA found him to be a reliable source. We don't know specifically if this study was, but oh boy, once I describe the study, it's going to sound right in line with those 17 core testing principles we talked about earlier. Ted was part of a psychological experiment best described as pissing on your hopes and dreams while promoting self-hatred through constant insult and constant brutalization.
That's awesome.
I wrote that myself. I want to point out, I did not take that from a source I'm quoting. No, that is my synopsis. Henry Murray, a Harvard psychologist, would interview participants to learn their goals and moral beliefs, and then would spend hours attacking their views and beliefs of these participants, basically coming at them so aggressively that they would start to question their own beliefs. At least that was the idea of the study. Could a negative response promote the reaction they wanted? I'm using the wrong terms for psychology because negative is a lack of stimulus.
We get your meaning.
Yeah.
We're not psychologists. We don't know all the language.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that is just it, and it's me trying to speak to both audiences, and I can only speak to one. Often, participants would be forced to review audio recordings of their previous sessions in order to reinforce their failures or shortcomings. Sometimes they literally just asked about, what's the dumbest thing you ever did? And then they would just hold that over you repeatedly. We know that Ted spent 200 hours as a part of this study, which is longer than almost any other participant. I believe he was the longest participant, but I'm not positive. And it's important to note, Ted went to college very early. I believe he was 14 when this happened.
Oh.
I don't know how emotionally stable y'all were at 14, but
I sure as hell wasn't.
yeah, I wasn't.
No.
I was a fucking mess, and this is a 14-year-old kid alone at college who's being berated in the most brutalistic fashion possible. There were some times where they'd even slap them for what they said. Nothing was off the table here. This could be described as softcore torture porn. That's Ted got fucked by this. There's a fair argument here to be made for this study being the reason Ted chose to disassociate from society and flee to the wilderness after writing his doctoral dissertation. ultimately becoming the Unabomber. Henry Murray was frequently used by the CIA for data harvesting. He was found to be a good source. He was a guy who didn't question where the grant money was coming from. We know he was paid through a couple of known CIA shell corporations, and that's how we can make the connection. We do not know specifically if CIA money went to this experiment, but does it sound like it doesn't fit the test parameters?
It definitely sounds like it fits the parameters, whether this was the CIA doing it following their parameters or whether this was something else that just happened to have similar parameters, we can't really know.
The program and Ted's time in it lines up with the start of MK Ultra. And furthermore, if this had started under Artichoke's supervision, because the only reason Artichoke ended is because they got caught.
Right.
And MK Ultra ended not in 73 when documents were destroyed. They started destroying internal documents. It ended in 77 when it went under investigation.
When it came out, yeah.
At which point the public line is, we no longer engage in such experiments, activities, or funding such things, but I don't believe you. You just renamed it the last time somebody caught wind. Why wouldn't you pull the same trick twice?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I got. Thoughts.
As far as secret government programs,
oh, it's not secret. This is public
well,
record.
not anymore.
There are
Secret
the
while they're
time,
doing
it
it.
was
That makes it a
secret.
secret program.
Yeah, it was a secret program, even if it's not secret anymore. But as far as secret programs by the government, that's got to be one of the most widespread as far as, like you said, dosing random people.
I think it's one of the longest running because from 53 to 77. Jesus.
Yeah, that's right around 25 years.
Yeah, and they just got more bold as time went on. Like, from the little bit we actually have about those 6 confirmed cases, most of which actually we have documentation about Canada. I find it funny that the Canada shit survived. They paid attention to everything in the U.S. Like, no, we didn't do nothing here. What about all those Canadian mental patients we gave acid and didn't tell them?
They're Canadian. They'll be fine.
They're probably not as mad as the ones we gave heroin to.
They're already way too mellow, so a little bit of stress is probably good for them.
Wow, Alan's take pro-CIA.
I suppose somebody has to be.
Look who you're talking to.
I really expected you to have, like, more of a reaction to this.
In all honesty, I'm more just having visions of you guys is like stereotypical conspiracy guys. The jacket you're wearing even kind of fits the stereotype.
This is all on public record. This is all totally confirmable.
I'm just telling you what's going through my brain.
I went with zero conspiracy information. I went with direct governmental sources for as much of it as I could. This absolutely happened, and people's civil liberties were absolutely trampled for what was basically a torture program.
That being said, Alan does have a point. Because so little is known about this, a lot of conspiracy theories have sprung up around it.
Well, like I said, over 160 operations that we know of.
Yeah, we are trying to be informative here and not go into the conspiracy theories, but you're not wrong.
Although
there is massive conspiracy theories surrounding MK Ultra.
I will say this to dissuade MK Ultra conspiracies. There are any number of other programs that have been disclosed through other FOIA requests that can be tangentially linked to tangential links that you can't actually call it MK Ultra, but like, well, this guy who did this also supervised this. It wasn't his team. There's no guarantee. So a lot of those 160 that we know fucking nothing about could have been disclosed by now, and in all likelihood, anything that is surviving has been. They just didn't tell you it was MK Ultra, and they have enough other secret shit that it didn't matter.
The best way to obfuscate something like that is to bury it under layer upon layer upon layer of separation.
Yeah,
just because the guys at the top are running MK Ultra doesn't mean this guy at the bottom who's doing his study at Harvard knew he was part of MK Ultra.
Most of the people running these studies had no idea where the money was coming from ultimately. They just knew
grants. Government grants.
Yeah, well, not even government. Oftentimes they were through independent shell companies.
Yeah.
So they just thought, oh, some private investor really believes in the work we're doing. That's wonderful.
Yeah, well, especially because at the time a lot of these researchers were working off their own beliefs that didn't necessarily line up with those 17 bullet points you read off, but may have been one or two of the bullet points, and the people in MK Ultra decided that, hey, we'll shovel some money this way because he's doing one of the things we want.
Like I pointed out, the CIA actually furthered our understanding of mental health by funding shit where people were being manipulated, but being run by legitimate researchers. Not all of this was totally evil, but throwing out consent, testing on prisoners, testing on private U.S. citizens, that's really fucked up.
Yep.
Do they actually, draw any, overall conclusions? I mean, I gotta imagine if you do something for 25 years, you gotta come up with some sort of conclusion?
Oh, some people definitely lost their jobs, but in terms of, jail time, I don't believe anyone
No. I mean, ideological conclusions. You did run an experiment for 25 years, you have to conclude something from it.
In terms of MK Ultra's effectiveness, it was deemed a failure.
I mean, did they prove that this works, this doesn't work?
No, it was deemed a failure because the overwhelming majority of its hypotheses that they wanted to test turned out negative. Most of the things they wanted to do, they ultimately couldn't at that point in time. So overall, MK Ultra was a failure.
So yes,
they did
decide something. They decided that MK Ultra did not succeed at the things they wanted it to.
Yeah, they just did a bunch of fucked up things to get to the decision of, well, this was a waste of time. It's the pandandrum of U.S. intelligence.
They wasted exactly the right amount of time on it?
Well, I mean, we had to get an episode.
You walked right into that one.
I feel I handled this eloquently.
Yeah, well...
Yeah, so what we got out of MK Ultra was that they claim it as a failure, but every failure is still a point of data.
Oh yeah,
they did learn a lot.
They proved
doing
the
this.
stuff they were trying to do, you can't do.
Yeah.
That is still a scientific result.
At that time, chemistry is advanced. New things have been discovered. They could change methods now.
Yeah.
There's the biggest thing from MK Ultra that people studying it come away with from it is we only know about this because they copped to it. They could just still be doing shit like this.
They only admitted to what we found out.
Like, as conspiratorial as that sounds, legitimate journalists that studied this and reported on at the time came to that conclusion. It's not a radical view. And Alan's just like, I'm going to trust the government so long as there's a Republican in the White House.
No. The current situation clearly proves that's not the case. But
you're not going to speak to the high levels of corruption that must have existed within the CIA to allow such a program to run in the way it did, unchecked for as long as it did?
Well, you're doing it so eloquently.
Alan, will you condemn the CIA?
They're already on me for being a commie.
I couldn't help it.
No, that's exactly what I'm getting at.
They broke the law and they did some fucked up shit. There you go. I said it.
It's on wax. That's good enough for me. Bye, everybody.
I think that's all we're getting out of this week. Thank you guys for listening to Informed and Confused.
At InfoConfused on Twitter.com.
Thank you. I'm Ben.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Nick. Go do some acid.
Bye.
Consensually.
Next time on Informed and Confused.
Big fucking war, man!
Speaking of assholes.
Holy shit, I aged a little. Jesus fuck. I mean, about time. I looked the same since I was 12, and that was goddamn devastating mentally.